I wouldn't have touched the journal if it hadn't been for the bookmark. It was sitting right on the corner of the nightstand, left open like Brenda always did when she wanted me to know something. But this wasn't one of her little passive-aggressive gestures about doing the dishes or forgetting to close the garage door. This was personal. The leather-bound cover was familiar, a gift from me 2 birthdays ago, back when we were still trying. Back when we'd still fall asleep touching. She left for her sister's place 3 days ago. Said she needed space. Just a little break, she called it. To clear my head. 3 states away, to Raleigh. I didn't argue. I figured letting her go, hell, even encouraging her, might get things back on track. But when I went to plug in my phone on her side of the bed and knocked her journal onto the floor, I noticed the bookmark sticking out, like a flag someone forgot to lower. Curiosity wasn't my default setting. I was the guy who fixed things quietly, who made peace instead of trouble. But something about that little fabric tag sticking out of the pages made my stomach feel weird. Like I was supposed to see it. Like she wanted me to. I told myself I'd just glance. Just enough to make sure she wasn't spiraling. I flipped it open to the flagged entry. The title was written in her cursive handwriting, neat and even. What'd I tell him if I had the guts? At first I thought maybe it was one of those long, emotional letters women write when they're trying to process things. Probably about me, I figured. But as I read on, it wasn't what she felt about me that hit me hardest. It was the fact that she never planned to say it out loud. She just needed somewhere to store it, like a secret drawer with no key. I didn't make it halfway through before my throat dried up. There was no name, no address. Just words. Painfully specific ones. Phrases like, our Thursdays at the lake, and your cologne's still on my hair after I drive back. Whoever he was real. She wrote like she was in love. And not just in love, obsessed. Addicted. And the kicker? She wasn't vague about the place. She mentioned her sister's neighborhood, a coffee shop a block away, some apartment complex on Elm Street. No names. But she was seeing him while she was visiting family. I closed the journal slowly, careful like it was radioactive. That night, I made myself a drink and sat out on the back porch with the cicadas buzzing like bad reception. My hand hovered over my phone for a long time. Eventually, I tapped call on one of the most familiar numbers in my contacts. Brenda's sister, Lacey. She picked up on the third ring. Hey, Matt. I was just thinking about you. How's everything holding up without her? Oh, you know me, I said with a chuckle, keeping it light. House is quieter without her humming every time she does dishes. Lacey laughed, but it was strained. I could hear it. I leaned back in the chair. So, I asked, letting my voice dip a little, you guys having fun down there? That's when it happened. Not a pause. Not a laugh. A crack. She went silent for just a second. Barely enough for most folks to notice. But I heard it. Then she said, yeah, we're good. You know, just catching up. But that second of hesitation stuck with me like a splinter. I wrapped up the call with small talk and hung up. Then I just sat there, listening to the quiet. The next morning, I reread the journal page. Not to torture myself, but to understand. I wanted to know how long this had been going on. What kind of man she described. He wasn't just a fling. She saw him as some kind of salvation. Said he made her feel like the woman I was before marriage. Said I wouldn't understand, because I only ever saw the version of her that fit into my life. Maybe she was right, but that didn't mean I was going to sit in silence. By lunch, I knew what I had to do. I went down to the garage, grabbed a pen, and pulled out a clean sheet of cream-colored paper from my desk drawer. And then I copied her journal entry. Word for word. Every single one. No name. No context. Just raw confession. I made sure the handwriting was steady, personal, like it was hers. Then I folded it neatly and addressed the envelope. Lacey Bennett, Raleigh, North Carolina. No return address. No signature. Just a quiet bomb with a stamp on it. I figured I had about 2 days, maybe 3, before the phone rang. But I didn't expect what came next. Lacey didn't call. She showed up. The envelope had been in the mail for exactly 3 days. I kept the receipt from the post office folded in my wallet like it meant something. Not that I doubted it would reach her, it was Raleigh. I'd mailed Christmas cards to that address for the last 5 years. Still, this was different. This wasn't a card or a note. This was a bullet wrapped in linen stationery. I didn't hear anything the first day, or the second, but on the third day, around 7:45 in the evening, just as I was finishing up dishes and wondering if I'd ever get used to the quiet around the house, my phone buzzed on the counter. Lacey Bennett. My thumb hovered over the screen for a second before I answered. Hello. There was a pause. Then came her voice, clipped and tight. Matt, I need to talk to you. In person. I waited. Okay. I'm outside. I looked through the window, and sure enough, there she was, standing on the porch like a ghost from another life. She had a windbreaker on over a t-shirt, no makeup, and her hair was pulled back into one of those messy buns Brenda always used to wear. She looked tired. No, she looked hollow. I opened the door slowly. Hey, Lacey. She held up the letter like it had bit her. Did you write this? I didn't answer right away. I motioned her in, and she followed me into the living room, clutching the folded paper like it might fly away. Was this Brenda's? She asked, her voice quieter now. She was standing right by the mantel, eyes scanning the words for the 100th time. I figured. She wrote it, I said finally. I just copied it. That was enough. She sank into the recliner, the one Brenda always called her reading chair. She looked like she didn't know whether to cry or scream. I thought she was seeing someone, she said. I thought something was off. But not this. I never imagined she'd. She trailed off. I waited. I confronted her, she went on. Right after I read it. Didn't even let her know I'd gotten anything in the mail. Just sat her down and asked her straight out. I didn't say anything. Just listened. She didn't deny it, Matt. She didn't even blink. Just sat there, looking at me like I was the one being unreasonable. Like I'd crossed some line by asking. Now she looked up at me. She said she loved him. I didn't flinch. Didn't move. Just stared at the fireplace like it might tell me what I was supposed to do next. You know what else she said? Lacey asked. She said it wasn't anybody's business. That you and I wouldn't understand because we live small lives. That he makes her feel like she's not a mother or a wife or some washed-up suburban woman. That he sees her. She said it like the words tasted bitter in her mouth. Then she threw the letter onto the coffee table and shook her head. I should have seen it sooner. All the late nights. The excuses. The way she always left the room to take calls. But she's my sister. You just don't imagine your own flesh and blood lying like that. And the worst part? She used me as cover. Said she needed space, needed to reconnect with family. She did reconnect, I said dryly. Just not with the family. Lacey huffed, a laugh that had no humor in it. No, she reconnected with some guy from college. His name's Evan. Divorced, 2 kids, works in tech. She met him at a networking mixer I dragged her to last year. He was there with his boss. Brenda was all smiles that night, but I didn't think anything of it. I was busy trying to make sure nobody spilled wine on the caterer. Now my stomach twisted. So it's been going on that long? Long enough. Lacey leaned forward. You're not the only one she's been lying to. But I'll tell you this much. She's not going to walk away clean. I looked up. What do you mean? She smirked, not kindly. Let's just say, Evan's wife is about to get a very illuminating email. My eyebrows went up. You know her? No, but I know how to find her. A quick LinkedIn search and a matching Facebook profile. Women talk. Especially betrayed ones. I should have felt vindicated, but I just felt tired. She's still down there? I asked. For now, she doesn't know I've come up here. Thinks I'm out shopping. She left her phone charging in the other room. I nodded. You staying the night? I don't know. She looked around our living room, like she was suddenly aware of how normal everything seemed. What are you going to do when she comes back? I shrugged. Depends if she's coming back to a house or a suitcase. For a while, we just sat there in silence. The TV was off. The house was too clean. It always got like this when Brenda was gone. Like even the dust didn't want to settle. I'm sorry, Lacey said finally. For everything. I feel like I should have known. You couldn't have, I said, but I appreciated it anyway. She left an hour later. Gave me a hug that felt more like a pact than comfort. And when the front door clicked shut behind her, I sat back down in the recliner and stared at the envelope on the table. It had worked. Now the clock was ticking. The fallout came faster than I expected. The next morning, I woke up to a string of texts from an unknown number. You son of a bitch. You ruined everything. How dare you go behind my back? Lacey's furious. She won't even look at me. You read my journal? Then, oddly, nothing for hours. That afternoon, I got a text from Lacey. I told her I'm not covering for her anymore. I'm done. Also, Evan's wife called me. Let's just say fireworks. I replied simply, thanks. That Easter, Brenda came home like nothing had happened. She walked into the kitchen, dropped her bag, and tried to make small talk like we hadn't crossed the Rubicon. I played along. Let her talk. Let her hang herself with her own rope. We were hosting Easter brunch that year. My folks, her folks, Lacey, a few cousins. Everyone was there. Halfway through brunch, Brenda excused herself to take a call. She didn't come back. 10 minutes later, Lacey walked back and holding Brenda's phone. She left, Lacey said flatly. What do you mean she left? She ran. Evan's wife showed up at the front door. Told her exactly what she thought of her. In front of our neighbor. Brenda didn't say a word. Just grabbed her keys and peeled out. The room went silent. Her father looked like someone punched him in the stomach. Her mother just stared at the ham like it had insulted her personally. It was beautiful. And terrible. But mostly beautiful. Later that night, I sat on the porch again. Same spot. Same glass of bourbon. Same quiet house. Only this time, I wasn't wondering. I wasn't pacing. I wasn't waiting. I was finished. Or so I thought. 3 months later, I woke up to a voicemail. No caller ID. Just static, and then her voice. Soft. Like smoke. I know you read it. I know what you did. She didn't say her name. Didn't yell. Just left those 8 words and hung up. I never deleted it. It's still on my phone. Still my morning alarm. Every day, it reminds me. Even ghosts leave footprints. I started sleeping on only one side of the bed. It wasn't out of principle or protest. It was just habit, I guess. Even after everything. After the journal, the phone calls, the blow-up at Easter brunch. I still left her side untouched. Pillows still fluffed. Lamp still angled toward the book she'd left behind 2 months ago. It's strange, what your brain clings to when your heart gets shattered. She hadn't come back. Not physically, at least. But that voicemail, those 8 words, echoed through every room like a ghost who hadn't figured out she was dead yet. I know you read it. I know what you did. Sometimes, I played it just to hear her voice. Other times, I wanted to delete it. But I never did. Because it meant she was still out there somewhere, chewing on it. The guilt. The loss. The wreckage she caused. And I wanted her to feel it. Bad. A week after Easter, Lacey called again. She's staying in a hotel out in Wilmington, she said. Got it out of her old co-worker. Brenda didn't know I still talked to Dana. Alone? I asked. Hard to say. She's not staying with Evan anymore, if that's what you're asking. That caught my attention. What happened? Well, Lacey said with a grim sort of satisfaction. Turns out Evan's wife didn't just blow things up in private. She sent screenshots of your letter and Brenda's journal to Evan's HR department. The company has a moral conduct clause. They let him go. Apparently, they'd warned him before about office relationships. I almost smiled. Almost. So, wait. Brenda lost her affair partner and his job. Yep. She's radioactive now. Can't show her face around Raleigh. Can't go back to her job. From what I hear, she tried to move in with a friend from college, but that fell apart in 2 days. People don't want to be near this kind of mess, Matt. Not when it's scorched earth. There was a pause. I heard her sip something, probably coffee. And you know what's crazy? She said finally. She still hasn't said sorry. Not to me. Not to Mom. Not to you. Just excuses. Sounds about right. Still want the divorce? I didn't answer for a moment. Oh, I want more than that. I started with the mirror. It was a big, gilded one she bought from some antique store in Asheville. Always said it opened the room up. I stared at it one morning, watching myself sip coffee in silence, and thought, you know what? Let's change the view. I took it off the wall, dragged it out to the garage, and in its place, I hung up the old family photo of us at Lake Lure. The one with her wearing the baseball cap backward, laughing so hard she had to hold her ribs. I didn't do it to remember her. I did it to remind myself of who she used to be. The version of her that hadn't yet started resenting the life we built. The woman who used to call me from the grocery store because she couldn't remember what kind of mustard I liked. That woman was gone. But the echo of her, she was still haunting things. Brenda's mom came by a few days later. She looked worn down, like someone who'd aged 10 years in 10 weeks. I don't know what to say, she told me from the doorway. You don't have to say anything, I said. Wasn't your mess. Still, she said, fiddling with the hem of her sleeve. She's not herself. I don't know what happened to my daughter. I let her in, made us some tea, because I couldn't think of what else to offer. She looked around the house like it was a museum she hadn't visited in a while. She really broke it, didn't she? She said, half smiling and half crying. She lit the match. I just watched it burn. She nodded, then reached into her purse and handed me a small velvet pouch. This is her wedding ring. She left it behind at Lacey's. I took it slowly. The band was still warm, somehow. Or maybe my fingers were just cold. She doesn't deserve to keep it, she added. And I thought you should decide what to do with it. I nodded, but said nothing. She left 10 minutes later. I stood at the window and watched her pull away, and that little pouch sat on the kitchen counter like a question I didn't know how to answer. Later that week, I got a Facebook message from someone I didn't recognize. Are you Brenda's husband? No hello. No context. Just that. I clicked on the profile. It was a woman, maybe mid-30s. Pretty. Looked tired in every photo. Her name was Angela. I typed back. Ex-husband, technically. Who's asking? The dots blinked for a second, then. I'm Evan's wife. I sat up straighter. I got your letter. I recognized the handwriting. It's Brenda's. I'm guessing you sent it to Lacey on purpose? I typed. That's right. Thank you. I paused. You okay? I asked. There was a delay. Getting there. Filed for divorce. Got the kids into therapy. And I quit pretending I didn't know. So yeah, I'm okay. Just wanted to say you helped. More than you know. We didn't talk long. Just enough to feel like two people crawling out of the same wreck. When the conversation ended, I stared at the screen for a while. Not out of regret. Out of something close to peace. The house kept getting quieter. I repainted the guest room. Got rid of her old succulents. Replaced the bedding with stuff that didn't have her favorite colors. Slowly, the place started to feel like mine again. Not ours. Mine. But even as I stripped the layers of her away, that voicemail stuck with me. I know you read it. I know what you did. The way she said it, it wasn't angry. It was broken. And maybe that's what scared me most. Not that she was furious, but that she finally understood what she'd thrown away. That she'd looked in the mirror and realized the woman staring back at her was someone she didn't even recognize anymore. She thought the affair was freedom. Turned out, it was exile. And me? I was rebuilding. Quietly. Deliberately. And best of all, publicly. That summer, I got invited to a 4th of July barbecue at Lacey's place. Just a small get-together. Her fiancé, a few neighbors. I hadn't seen her in over a month. She hugged me at the door like family. No words needed. During the barbecue, I caught her staring at me a few times, curious, maybe even proud. Like she couldn't quite believe I'd come out the other side stronger. Later, as the sun dipped low and people started packing up, she handed me a fresh lemonade and sat next to me on the porch steps. She called me last week, she said. I didn't have to ask who. She's in Florida now, staying with a friend, trying to start over. I sipped the lemonade. Good for her. She said she's trying to figure out who she is. I gave a short laugh. Might want to start with who she was. Lacey didn't respond. Just looked at the sky. She's alone, Matt. Completely. No Evan. No job. No apartment. She burned it all down. I didn't strike the match, I said. She did that on her own. Then Lacey reached into her pocket and pulled out something small. It was a flash drive. What's this? I asked. She mailed it to me. Said it was for you. Said she didn't have the guts to send it directly. I took it. It was plain. No label. Did you watch it? I asked. No. Didn't want to. But something tells me it's not an apology. I slipped it into my coat pocket. We'll see. That night, back home, I poured a glass of whiskey and plugged the flash drive into my laptop. There was only one file. Mirror.mp4. I clicked play. And there she was, sitting on the edge of a motel bed, face bare, hair undone, looking more human than I'd seen her in years. Hey, she said to the camera. If you're watching this, I guess you win. She looked down, breathed deep. I was selfish. I lied. I ruined the one thing that ever made me feel safe. She looked back up, eyes wet. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't want anything. I just needed you to see it. What I became. A long pause. Then, just before the video ended, she said it. You saved me by destroying me. And I hate that you're right. The screen went black. I sat there for a long time, letting it sink in. I didn't feel triumphant, but I felt done. There's something strange about how quiet grief is. Not the kind that hits when you first find out your life's been cracked in two. That grief's loud, messy, full of broken plates and stiff drinks. But the kind that settles in afterward, that one's a whisper. It crawls into your routines, slips between your coffee mug and your steering wheel, and starts to live there. That's the grief I carried in the months after Brenda left. Not because I missed her. Not anymore. But because I missed the life I thought we had. And somehow, that was worse. It was August when I burned her name. Not literally, of course. I'm not that poetic. But I took every reminder, credit cards, old Christmas cards, those anniversary notes with the hearts dotting the I's, and I tossed them into a fire pit out back. I didn't cry. I didn't even flinch. I just watched the paper curl and blacken like it was never real to begin with. When I dropped the last thing, a birthday card from the year we bought the house, into the flames, I stood there until the smoke stopped rising. That night, I slept like I hadn't in months. The next morning, I opened my email and there she was again. Brenda. Subject line. If you'll read just one thing. No attachments. Just a single sentence in the body. I know I've lost the right to ask anything of you, but I have to try. Please meet me. There was a location, a quiet diner halfway between here and Wilmington. Neutral ground. I stared at the message for a long while, the cursor blinking like it had a heartbeat. I didn't know what she wanted. Closure, maybe. Redemption, though I doubted it. More likely, she needed something, validation, a clean slate, maybe a person who still saw her as human. But here's the thing about second chances. Some people use them to rebuild. Others use them to reoffend. Still, I replied with one word. Okay. I got to the diner 15 minutes early. Old place, nothing special. Cracked vinyl booths, clinking spoons, the scent of bacon cooked in a pan that's never been cleaned quite right. The kind of spot where the coffee's always just warm enough to be disappointing. Brenda walked in exactly on time. She looked smaller somehow. Or maybe I'd just gotten taller since I left the weight of her betrayal behind. She didn't smile, didn't reach for a hug, just slid into the booth across from me like we were strangers who once shared a secret. Hi, she said quietly. Hey. We stared at each other for a moment. Then she reached into her bag and pulled out something that made my stomach turn, her wedding ring. I want you to have it, she said, setting it gently between us. I looked at it. That same band I'd held in my palm months ago, when her mother gave it to me like it was the last stone from a crumbled wall. I don't want it, I said. I buried that life already. She looked hurt, but nodded. I figured, she said. But I had to try. A waitress came by. I ordered coffee. Brenda got tea. We didn't say a word until the drinks arrived. Then she leaned forward, eyes glistening. I'm not here to beg, she said. I know I don't deserve grace or closure, but I need you to understand something. I let her speak. I didn't leave you because I stopped loving you, she said. I left because I stopped loving myself, and I thought someone else could fill that hole. She laughed bitterly. Turns out, all he did was make it bigger. I said nothing. I was drowning, she continued. And instead of reaching for your hand, I reached for a fire. I got burned. Bad. She pulled back, her voice softer now. I'm not asking for us to start over. I know that ship's not just sailed, it's sunk. But Matt, do you think I'm evil? I studied her. No, I said finally. I think you're selfish. I think you ran from your own guilt and used other people as lifeboats. She swallowed hard. That's fair. The silence between us was thick enough to chew. Then I added, but evil? No, you're not evil. You're just a woman who thought the mirror lied when it showed you the truth. Her eyes filled, but no tears fell. You know, she whispered, you were always the better one. I wasn't better, I replied. I was steady. You mistook that for weakness. After the bill came, we stood outside by the parking lot. The sun was setting behind her, casting her shadow long and stretched across the pavement. She looked like a memory I hadn't asked to revisit. Familiar, worn, and ultimately not mine anymore. I'm leaving North Carolina, she said. Lacey doesn't speak to me. My parents barely return my texts. Evan's gone. I need to start somewhere new. Good, I said. New's not always bad. She looked down. I still wear the necklace you gave me. The one from Savannah. Do you remember? I remember. It broke last week, she said. The clasp gave out. Guess it had enough too. That made her laugh, soft and sad, like the punchline to a joke no one tells out loud. Then she looked up, really looked at me, and said the last thing I ever expected. Will you forgive me someday? I didn't answer. Not yes. Not no. I just nodded once, in a way that might have meant anything. She smiled. Goodbye, Matt. Then she turned, climbed into her car, and drove off. I watched her taillights disappear down the highway until the road swallowed them whole. That night, I went home and did something I hadn't done since she left. I deleted the voicemail. Her voice, those 8 words, that reminder, gone. Not out of mercy. Out of mercy for myself. I didn't want her voice greeting me each morning. I didn't want my peace tied to a woman who lit matches like promises and walked away from every fire. I wanted a new alarm clock. So I bought one. A simple one. Digital. No voice, no ghosts. Just silence. 2 weeks later, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I knew the handwriting. Brenda's. Inside was a single sheet of paper. You were right to walk away. I'm learning to live with that. Thank you for showing me who I was, even if it broke me. There was no signature, no request, just that. I folded it once and slid it into a drawer next to the flashlight and the spare batteries. A reminder, not of her, but of the cost of forgetting yourself in someone else's fire. There's a strange kind of peace in finality. Not the type that shows up in movies where two people hug in the rain and forgive each other because the credits are about to roll. No, this one's quieter. Real. It creeps in around the edges of your life, in the way you finally stop checking your phone, or how the old memories start to feel like someone else's home video. That was me, months after Brenda drove away. Not angry, not bitter, just hollowed out and steady, like a tree that survived the storm but learned to bend from now on. By September, I'd changed everything. The kitchen, which she always said needed a woman's touch, got a masculine facelift. Darker cabinets, brushed metal, the kind of look she'd once called cold, but that now felt like mine. I even tore out the herb garden she'd built out back, not out of spite, but because the dead basil made me feel like the ghost of her thumb was still haunting the dirt. Funny how grief lives in the dumbest things. A tea kettle, a chip in the bathroom tile, the worn patch of carpet near the bed where her heels used to sit every morning. So I gutted it all, not violently, just deliberately, like carving out rot before it spreads. And slowly, the house stopped looking like us, started looking like me. I didn't hear from Brenda again after that last letter. No calls, no updates, not even a forwarded address from her mother, who still dropped off an occasional plate of banana bread on my porch and refused to step inside. She became, in the truest sense, a ghost. But what I didn't expect, what I hadn't planned for, was the echo. Because once the big drama of betrayal and fallout and confrontation fades, what's left behind isn't closure. It's questions. And one of those questions came walking into my life one cloudy Tuesday afternoon, dressed in denim and looking exactly like her sister. Lacey. She showed up unannounced, same as last time. Knocked on the door and held up a paper bag like we were about to trade contraband. I brought chicken salad, she said. Figured it was safer than lasagna. I let her in. She looked around like she was stepping into a memory. Wow, she said. You really changed everything. I had to. She nodded. Looks good. Less fragile. We ate on the back porch. The air had that crisp early fall bite to it. Leaves just starting to give up and let go. Seemed fitting. After a while, Lacey sighed and leaned back in her chair. She called me again. I didn't ask who. Didn't need to. She's in Tennessee now. Got a job managing a bridal shop, if you can believe it. I snorted. Ironic. She said she's clean now. Therapy. Journaling. All the stuff she used to roll her eyes at. I nodded. Good for her. Then Lacey added. She asked me if I thought you'd ever talk to her again. That sat there between us for a moment. I didn't answer. Finally, she said, I told her no. Told her not to wait for the man she buried with her choices. I looked at her. Was that hard to say? Harder than you'd think, she admitted. She's still my sister. And sometimes I miss the version of her that didn't burn everything down. I sighed. We all do. Then she turned, looked me straight in the eyes, and said the thing I didn't see coming. Have you let her go, Matt? Really? That one hit different. Because I'd done the purging, the deleting, the repainting and renaming and reliving. But had I really let her go? Or was I still waking up each morning and setting my life in place around the space she left behind? I don't know, I said honestly. Then maybe it's time, she replied quietly. That night, I opened the drawer where I kept the last letter. Brenda's words were still there, untouched. You were right to walk away. I'm learning to live with that. I read it once more. Then I folded it up, walked out back, and threw it into the same fire pit where I burned the others. Letting go doesn't always feel like freedom. Sometimes it feels like watching an old friend walk away without looking back and knowing deep down you're not going to follow. By October, I started seeing someone. Her name was Hannah. She worked at the local vet clinic. Kind eyes, smart mouth. The kind of woman who didn't ask for attention. She just earned it without trying. We met when I brought in a neighbor's dog after it got hit by a car. Long story. We got coffee a few times. Then lunch. Then dinner. She asked about my ex. I didn't dodge it. Affair, I told her. Sister's town. blew up in her face. Hannah nodded. Oof. That's heavy. Yeah. You still bitter? No, I said. I'm done being haunted. She smiled. Good. I don't date ghosts. Hannah met Lacey at a holiday craft fair a few weeks later. They got along well, which surprised me more than I expected. Lacey even leaned over during one of the booths and whispered, I like her. She's not complicated. That felt like a blessing in its own strange way. Later that week, I got a postcard in the mail. No return address. Just a floral front and a short note in familiar handwriting. I don't expect to be remembered kindly, but I do hope you're happy. For real this time. It wasn't signed. Didn't need to be. I pinned it to the inside of a cabinet, not as a shrine, but as a final page. That was the last I heard of her. Now and then, people still ask what happened. Not the close ones. They already know. But the neighbors. The folks at work. People who remember Brenda and I from the cookouts or the holiday parties. What happened with your wife? Someone asked me at a barber shop just last week. I paused for a second, smiled, and said, she left. I stayed. And that was enough. You don't always get justice in life. But sometimes, if you wait long enough, you get perspective. Brenda chased something she thought would fill her up. Instead, it exposed everything she refused to face. Me? I watched it all burn. And when the smoke cleared, I found a better view. Not perfect, but peaceful. The year rolled over quiet. No fireworks. No confetti. Just the hum of the heater cutting through the cold and the low murmur of a movie I wasn't watching. January 1st. A clean slate. I'd never been much for resolutions. But this one felt different, like a new room in a house I finally got the keys to. And maybe that's the best you can hope for after losing everything you thought was built to last. A few weeks earlier, I'd opened that drawer one last time. The one where I kept her final note. Not the journal page. Not the voicemail. Just the plain postcard with her handwriting. The one she sent with no return address. No plea for pity. I read it again. Then I tossed it in the trash with the day's coffee grounds. It was time. Hannah had stayed the night before, our first New Year's together. She brought homemade cinnamon rolls in Tupperware, the kind with way too much icing. We sat on the couch wrapped in a blanket and watched the ball drop with a crowd of strangers on TV. She leaned her head against my shoulder sometime around 12:02 a.m. and whispered, feels good to start something clean. She didn't say new. She said clean. And it stuck with me. I'd had new before. This time, I wanted clean. The voicemail. That damn voicemail. I deleted it months ago, but I still heard it sometimes in the quiet. I know you read it. I know what you did. 8 words. Soft. Accusing. Wounded. Like she was trying to turn her shame into my guilt. At first, I kept it like a trophy. Like some twisted badge that said, you won. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized something that made my chest tighten. It wasn't her voice that haunted me. It was mine. The version of myself who had trusted blindly. Who made morning coffee for a woman mapping out excuses. Who kissed her forehead goodnight while she texted a man 3 states away. That man, me, was still lingering somewhere. Not bitter. Not broken. Just stunned. So I let him go too. That spring, I got a call from Lacey. We hadn't talked much since the holidays. No falling out or anything. Just the natural drift that happens when a shared storm finally passes. She sounded distracted. You got a minute? She asked. Sure. She paused. You're not gonna believe who showed up at Mom's house today. I didn't need to ask. She didn't come inside. Lacey continued. Just stood at the edge of the driveway. Mom said she looked like she hadn't slept in days. Held something in her hand, then dropped it in the mailbox and walked off. What was it? A letter. To Mom. Lacey hesitated. To you. I found it the next morning. Plain white envelope. My name in soft cursive. Postmarked just the day before. I sat down at the kitchen table, took a breath, and opened it. Inside was a single page. No fluff. No drama. Just Brenda's words. Raw, sharp, and still somehow trying to clean up the mess she made. Matt, I've rewritten this about 10 times. Each version made me sound less like someone who regrets and more like someone trying to explain away fire with weather reports. So I'm just going to say it plain. You deserve better. Not just from me. From life. From all of it. You didn't deserve to be made into a backup plan. Or a safe harbor while I went chasing lightning. You were the life raft, and I was the fool who thought swimming alone made me stronger. You were my best friend. And I broke that. The man I cheated with, Evan, doesn't matter. He was a mirror. And I didn't like what I saw in my own reflection. I'm trying to rebuild now. brick by ugly brick. But some things can't be rebuilt, and I know we're one of them. Still, I hope one day you think of me. Not with love, not even with anger, but just with peace. I am sorry. B. Asterisk. I read it twice. Then I folded it back up and set it on the table. Not in a drawer. Not in the trash. Just there. Like a rock left on the edge of a lake. That weekend, I took Hannah up to Asheville. Cabin rental. Mountain air. A break from everything suburban and familiar. She didn't ask about Brenda. Didn't dig for old wounds. She just laughed at my bad jokes, stole all the blankets, and made cocoa in mugs that didn't match. One night, as we watched the fire crackle, she looked at me and asked, "You ever wonder how your life ended up here?" I thought for a moment. I said. Used to replay it all like a movie in my head. Every misstep, every hint I missed. And now I just watch the fire, I said. She smiled. Sounds like peace. It is. Lacey and I talked again in May. She was getting married that fall. Invited me to the wedding, +1, if I wanted. I said yes. Not just to the invite, but to life. To clean. One night in June, I got home from work and found something waiting on my porch. No note. No explanation. Just a small, square box. Inside it, a flash drive. Like the last one Brenda sent. Against my better judgment, I plugged it in. One file. Last word to MP3. It was a voice recording. Her voice. Calmer now. You're probably wondering why I'm doing this again. I guess part of me needed to speak one final thing into the world. You were right. About everything. And I needed you to hear it from my mouth, not my pen. Not because it fixes anything, but because truth has weight. And you deserve light. That was it. No dramatic goodbye. No plea. No tears. Just a woman finally learning to tell the truth. I deleted the file. Not in anger, but in relief. People like to talk about revenge like it's this grand, satisfying thing. But what I learned, what really stuck with me, is that truth is the sharpest blade of all. You let people hang themselves with their own lies. You step back. And then, one day, they realize the rope was theirs the whole time. Brenda did that. And I watched. Not to gloat, but to remember. Because sometimes, the best revenge isn't screaming. It's silence. It's moving on with a woman who looks you in the eye and doesn't blink. It's waking up to sunlight and the sound of a new coffee pot and thinking, this is better. Not perfect, but clean. That fall, at Lacey's wedding, I danced with Hannah under strings of soft yellow lights. Lacey gave a toast that made everyone laugh, and her new husband cried when she kissed him, which I found kind of beautiful. There were no ghosts in the room, just people who'd lived through something and come out wiser, stronger, and finally free. Subscribe to the channel